Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lowell City Council to order. Please join me in the council prayer. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me now in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Before I recognize Councilor Caulfield, I just want to make special note that we have some guests in the audience this evening from UMass Lowell Graduate School of Psychology who are here to watch government in action. So I want to thank Dr. Berkowitz and his class for being here. That being said, the chair recognizes Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would request a moment of silence with darkened chambers for Marie Mulligan, a loving and devoted wife, mother, grandmother. Mrs. Mulligan was the mother of former city councilor Grady Mulligan. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. May we all rise now in darkened chambers for a moment of silence. Thank you. May she rest in peace. The first item before us this evening, it's my pleasure to recognize the Greater Lowell Technical High School graphic arts students that are here this evening. As we all know, the Greater Lowell plays a vital role in our City of Lights parade, and they've won many a trophy, especially for their float that they do every year for the City of Lights parade. So it's my pleasure to recognize students from the Greater Lowell Vocational School, along with Mary Jo Santora, the director there, and I know that George O'Hare from the board is here as well. So the podium is yours. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us to speak to you this evening. We are representing Greater Lowell Technical High School and Skills USA. Skills USA is like the Olympics for vocational technical schools. We would like to share with you our project, which is the City of Lights Parade Float. Our project will be showcased at the Skills USA State Leadership Convention and at the end of the month. If we win a gold medal, we will be able to showcase our project at the national level. This project will give us the ability to showcase the City of Lowell and the City of Lights parade at both the state and national level.
Greater Lowell Technical High School has constructed a float for the City of Lights parade every year, and since 2001. Students in our carpentry, painting and design, electrical and graphics department work together to create a float that people look forward to seeing each year. We take pride in our craftsmanship and creativity. It would be a great honor for our school to have won Best in Parade on a number of occasions.
Every year, we create a float with a different theme. This year's theme was Candyland. First, graphic students created a design. Then, next we created 24 Candyland characters just like this. This is Princess Frostine. Carpentry students cut out plywood sections, which they brought up to graphics for us to draw on. After we drew them out, carpentry students cut out the silhouettes, and finally, graphic students did the painting.
Painting and design students did a great amount of work on the game board backdrop. After all the characters were installed onto our 18-foot-long float, electrical students added lighting. Finally, carpentry students constructed a roundabout which showed 4 Candyland characters running. You could tell that the children at the parade loved seeing the animation on our float.
This year we have chosen to make our float the theme of our Skills USA Tech Prep Showcase. In this competition for Massachusetts Technical High School students, contestants must present a special project created at their school. The project must show community value, technical skills, and business partnership. Last year, my team and I won the gold medal at the Massachusetts State Conference. The special recognition that our city is now presenting with us will help us with our goal to win gold once again this year. On behalf of our school, we'd like to say thank you.
Thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you.
The competition begins this Thursday, April 28th. I'd also like to recognize Elizabeth Bennett, the coordinator of the Student Activities and Special Projects out of Greater Lowell Vocational. So thank you very much for being here as well. I'd like to begin the agenda, the minutes of the April 5th meeting for acceptance. Motion by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Elliott to accept the minutes as presented and place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. I do have a request from the city manager that at this point that we go into executive session. I do have a motion by the city solicitor. This is dealing with some of the items that are coming up later on the agenda. So the manager thought it would be appropriate for us to hear from the manager. So let me just read this. To go into executive session for the purpose of discussing union contract negotiations, public discussion of which may be detrimental to the city's position, and further that the city council will return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session. Motion by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Elliott. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield,
Yes.
Councilor Dakota,
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça, Councilor Mercia,
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
The council is going to recess and go into the manager's office for what I'm being told is 10 or 15 minutes, so we should be back in about 10 or 15 minutes. Appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Go ahead. I have another one here. Go. Right?
Thank you for your patience. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Caulfield.
Here.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Counselor Martin.
Here.
Counselor Mendonça. Counselor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Milonazo.
Here.
Counselor Murphy.
Here.
Counselor Broderick.
Here. 8
present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Before we move into the public hearing portion of the agenda, I'd just like to recognize Troop 23 from the Highland section of the city who are here this evening as well. I'm sure earning a merit badge of some sort, so thank you very much for being here. It is public hearing time. The chair would like to open up the public hearing for a conduit location, National Grid, to place 925 feet along Broadway and Lewis Streets. A public hearing is now open for those wishing to speak in favor. For those wishing to speak in favor, your name and address, please.
David Boucher, National Grid, 1101 Turnpike Street, North Andover, Mass. I'm here on behalf of National Grid to ask the city of Lowell for the rights to place our conduit on Lewis Street. We'd be starting the project, having it on Market Street, running down the length of Lewis Street and crossing Broadway to the corner of Dummer Street, where we have an existing manhole. We're also asking for 4 manholes to be placed in the street also. If the city sees fit, it would enable us to go forward and have our electric lines underground on Lewis Street.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Public hearing is closed. Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Murphy to refer to the wire inspector. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you, sir. Moving on with the city manager's agenda, under communication, responses from council motions and requests. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief on this issue. I filed a motion, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you did too, about the finances on Winterfest. We do have that report, and it's very evident that the city did not spend any taxpayers' money on that Winterfest function. The funds that were spent came from private donations, and we thank them for that. And there's a reserve fund of $12,346.91 for the coming year, next year. So I just wanted to stress the taxpayer didn't fund the Winterfest, private donations did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Anyone else on motion? Councilor Murphy?
Thank you. We got a response back on Councilor Elliott's motion on an update of the Amoresco contract. And I think that as part of the FY 2012 budget, that we ought to also have this in our 5-year forecast, so that we have a clear picture of how the actual bond is being spent over that period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
I wanted to also follow up with some questions. Thank you for the information, Mr. Moses. I'm wondering if you would have just a little bit more information. That would be a sort of a breakdown of how much was spent for each, looks like each energy conservation measure. I know there is a total sum, but it'd be nice to know how much each one of these items costs.
I don't think the contractor, Amoresco, bills by the individual project, by the components, because they're on the hook to make this whole thing work within the budget. They can go over on one project and under on the other as long as they meet their guarantee. So I'm not sure that we have the data to break the actual spending out by ECM, because we're not billed by ECM.
Well, that's a little bit of a concern. How are we billed then? I mean, I presume that under ECM, if they're going to change lights out, lighting system improvements, they're going to say it's X amount of dollars. I mean, how else are we going to be able to gauge how much savings there is from a particular?
We're able to gauge the savings by matching our expenditures for energy compared to the debt service costs. When they're going out, they're purchasing lighting for all the buildings. Each individual building has an ECM associated with it. When they buy the lighting fixtures in bulk, and we pay that in bulk, any allocation between the Riley School and the City Hall is arbitrary.
Okay. I'd like to have a further discussion on this, Mayor, if, and I don't want to
Refer to
take
the
the
Finance
committee's time.
Subcommittee.
So if we can refer this to a subcommittee, to the Finance Subcommittee,
okay,
and
motion.
probably I'll give a better understanding as to how this works. And so if I can make that in the form of a
Motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Dakota, to refer the report on the Amoresco contract to the Finance Subcommittee. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to the vote. Anything else under communications? Motion by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick, to accept the communications placed on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next item, continuing under the city manager. We have a letter from the city manager. Dear Mayor Milanazzo and members of the city council, pursuant to the authority vested in me as city manager under Section 5A of Chapter 556 of the Acts of 1983, I have reappointed the following person to the Lowell Historic Board: Amy Stevens, 52 Lawrence Drive, number 312, as the at-large Historic Board member for 2-year term expiring February 28, 2013. Under the above referenced statute, confirmation by the City Council is required for this reappointment and is hereby requested. Motion to accept the communication and place on file by Council Mercy, second by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to the vote. Motion by Council Murphy, seconded by Council Elliott, that we approve the recommendation of the City Manager, Amy Stevens, to go on the Lowell Historic Board. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Order in City Council pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations, are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Whereas the City of Lowell desires to make temporary rules regulating traffic under actual conditions for a period of 60 days, and whereas Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, authorizes the City Council to make such temporary rules for a period not to exceed 60 days. Now therefore be it ordered, adjudged, and decreed by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: effective immediately for a period of 60 days thereafter, the following temporary traffic regulations shall be implemented. Section 266-55, parking for handicapped persons, elderly drop-off zones, in order to accommodate the needs of handicapped persons, there are hereby set aside and reserved for persons having V or HP license plates, as well as temporary handicap parking permits, the following parking spaces, hereby amended by adding the following: Mead Street, northwest, beginning 125 feet northeast of the northeasterly curb line of Floyd Street, running northeasterly along Mead Street for a distance of 20 feet. First Street North, beginning 638 feet west of the westerly curb line of Simpson Street, running westerly along First Street for a distance of 20 feet. Section 266-73, parking areas designated as church parking, is hereby amended by adding the following. C, the following areas are designated as church parking areas during services. Lawrence Street on the east side, beginning 312 feet south of the southerly curb line of Church Street. This point will be in line with the southern edge of the church building at 60 Lawrence Street, running southerly along Lawrence Street for a distance of 20 feet. There's no objection. Second reading by title. In City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations, are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Motion by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Dakota, that we approve the order. Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça. Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell and F&T Pizzeria Incorporated, doing business as Sammy's Pizzeria, for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 127 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Motion by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Dakota, to waive the full reading. All those in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell and F&T Pizzeria Incorporated, doing business as Sammy's Pizzeria, for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 127 Merrimack Street for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Any discussion? Motion to approve by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça. Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next vote, in City Council vote, authorizing an increase in the cost of living adjustment base amount from $12,000 to $13,000 as requested by the Lowell Retirement Board. Whereas the City of Lowell, by vote of the City Council on December 7, 1997, accepted the provisions of Section 103 of Chapter 32 of the Mass General Laws, and whereas Section 103J of Chapter 32 allows the Lowell Retirement Board to vote to increase the cost of living adjustment base amount in $1,000 increments with approval from the Lowell City Council. And whereas the Lowell Retirement Board voted on October 27, 2010, to increase the cost of living adjustment base amount by $1,000 from $12,000 to $13,000, now therefore be it voted by majority vote that pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 103J, the cost of living adjustment base amount for the Lowell retirement system shall be increased by $1,000 from $12,000 to $13,000. There's no objection. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing an increase in the cost of living adjustment base amount from $12,000 to $13,000 as requested by the Lowell Retirement Board.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The solicitor has given the council a ruling, and I'd like if Madam Solicitor could just briefly expound on that ruling for the council and the viewing audience at home.
Madam Solicitor.
Sure. There are 3 votes on tonight's agenda that all affect the council in that it affects both retirement as well as current medical coverage with respect to plans currently being offered. As a result, since under the conflict of interest laws, since all counselors potentially have some level of a conflict, that appropriately would invoke the rule of necessity. And therefore, if the council is all in agreement with the ruling that that each of you, even if you are not currently involved in a medical plan or currently a member of the city's retirement system, given your status, if there is a disclosure of that by the council, and you can just do it by a unanimous vote, then the rule of necessity would apply, and you would all be free to vote or not to vote, depending on the particular issue at hand.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Is there an official action that we need to take before we vote, Madam Solicitor?
I think, well, technically under the rule, each counselor would have to disclose. I think in this case, everyone has the exact same issue, which is not necessarily typical under the rule of necessity. So I think in this case, from the chair, you could simply recognize that all the council is potentially impacted by 3 of these votes as it pertains to both retirement issues as well as healthcare issues. And then following that, the rule of necessity would be implicated.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. So from Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious, Mr. Manager, I did notice, or Madam Clerk, both Mr. Moses and Laura Wright voted no. Could you explain why? And the manager, I presume, recommending this, but 2 individuals voted no.
recommended this be brought forward.
Right.
It's on the city manager's portion, but it really should more appropriately be under a petition. It's a petition by the retirement board.
Okay. So could both, either one of you or both explain your position on?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I voted against this because, for two reasons. It has a financial impact to the city of $200,000 a year, and that goes upward until our unfunded liability is paid. But partly it was tough for me to reconcile the current public climate and the concern over public benefits with increasing a public benefit at this time. It's my own personal view. It was, I was not advised to vote any way by the city manager. We didn't even talk about this vote. And Ms. Wright can speak for herself.
Basically, I agree with the financial implications. As far as voting, no, I honestly was torn because I do feel bad for those retirees that are on the bitter edge, that are making $6,000 a year. And this basically means they'll be getting $30 more a year. So I voted no, just because of the city's financial implications.
So the implications are approximately $200,000, and the average is?
I'd like to make the point that that's not my estimate, not Ms. Wright's estimate, but the actuary who works for the retirement system.
Do you agree or disagree with, or concur with this actuarial number?
This is what they do.
Okay, well, you made a point to say this is
agree.
not my number, so I want to
agree.
know, what is your number, or what was your basis for making that decision?
My decision was based on the actuary's information, right? If this were a smaller number, I might be more likely to approve it. And it somewhat differs from the forthcoming vote, where you can see that both Ms. Wright and I voted in favor of that. It's a different situation.
Okay. So, Mr. Manager, do you have a position on this? I mean, he said he voted independent of you. 10 out of 10 times recommendations come from you, so I'm going to presume, knowing that Mr. Moses is either your designee or appointment, I just want to know where people are in this. And I saw the vote, or when I learned of the vote, I was naturally curious why. And I understand the implications. There's no doubt about it. It makes sense. And if it's $30, is that the average that it's going to get for people making $6,000? Is that correct?
That's actually the most it could happen. You're increasing the base by $1,000,
Okay.
and the maximum cost of living adjustment each year is 3%. So 3% times $1,000 is $30. That's the maximum that anyone's pension can go up because of this.
And when's the last time there was, I can't recall, is there an annual increase, or when's the last time this was?
COLAs are awarded every year, but the COLA base has never been changed by vote of this body.
Okay, so this is just, right, this is the base, and then there'll be a cost of living increase on top of that. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager, I asked you a question, and I cut you off, I didn't get it.
That's all right. I haven't really taken a firm position on this. I think that, the unfunded liability that we have in our retirement account, as well as our health insurance accounts, are quite severe. And I think the position that has been taken by the CFO and the auditor were based upon, obviously, a firm understanding that we have to bring these costs under control, and absent other actions to do that, we have to take the kind of votes that they did. At the same time, it's a minor adjustment to a number of people, and I guess my position on that would be that I would probably recommend against the CFO and recommend that it be adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Martin and Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Mr. Moses' explanation and his view, and certainly I think none of us are unfamiliar with the climate, regarding benefits, retiree benefits, pension benefits, health insurance benefits for public employees. But at least in Massachusetts, I think, and here in Lowell, I think it's important to distinguish between pensions and health insurance. I think, there's a misunderstanding among the general public about what pensioners actually receive. I mean, for the most part, people that contribute to the pension system here don't get Social Security benefits. The vast majority, this is the pension. People also don't realize that current employees almost fully fund. They pay 11% of their pay into this system. The benefits are more generous than Social Security, but the contribution levels for the employees are much higher, almost double what someone would typically contribute to Social Security. So, I think these are, for the most part, hardworking people, work their whole careers, and, have funded their pension system. Now, I know there's the argument that years ago, people only paid 5% and they didn't fund theirs, and we have this unfunded liability. All those factors are true. But given that, we have an actuarially sound plan to get to full funding. And the city is meeting its obligation every year. So I think given the fact that we have a plan that's been accepted by the state, the Department of Revenue, and that we can get there, and the benefits for the most part are modest, I think this is a reasonable request. And I think it's much different from healthcare, both here in the city and nationwide. And I don't want to get too far off topic, but with healthcare, there is no plan. No one has a plan to get fully funded. That's a $400+ billion unfunded liability for which nobody has a solution, and that's kind of just dumped in our laps. But at least I think it's worthy to separate the issues, because I think they're far different, and I think this may throw off, by a year, our ability to get fully funded. But we're talking about $30 at maximum, which is not an unreasonable benefit for people. So, and I don't think it's going to bankrupt the city. And I think so. I plan to support this, and I do. If I was sitting where Mr. Moses was sitting, maybe I wouldn't support it either. But I do think there's a very real and rational basis to separate these pension benefits from other benefits.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I more or less agree with my colleague, and it is a reasonable request. I feel $30 is not going to bankrupt the city, but I will say that I'm very happy to be on the same page with the city manager this evening. This is a first, wouldn't you think? So I'm glad you were honest, and I'm glad you said that, because we do agree on something tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Moses. In the memo that was included here, it states that it's important to remember that employer costs are shared with the Lowell Housing Authority as well as the Transit Authority. What percentage of that is of that 200,000 is the city's?
They're small. I think off the top of my head, I could be wrong, but maybe 10 to 15%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The chair would like to invoke the rule of necessity based upon the comments made earlier by the solicitor, in the event that some, maybe even all of us, are essentially impacted by this vote. So the chair would like to invoke the rule of necessity. Do we need to have a vote on that? Or just, we need a vote on? Okay. So the chair would like to invoke a motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield, that we bring forward the rule of necessity. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Getting back to the vote, authorizing an increase in the cost of living adjustment base amount from $12,000 to $13,000 as requested by the Lowell Retirement Board. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Question to the solicitor, will the rule of necessity apply to the next vote as well? Yes, okay. In City Council, authorizing an increase in Section 101 survivor benefits from $6,000 to $9,000 as requested by the Lowell Retirement Board, whereas Section 101 of Chapter 32 allows the Lowell Retirement Board to vote to increase the amount of a survivor receives from $6,000 to $9,000 with approval from the Lowell City Council, and whereas this increase applies to survivors whose spouses were not allowed to apportion an annual allowance to their spouse if the retiree predeceased the spouse, and whereas the Lowell Retirement Board voted on March 26, 2010 to increase the Section 101 survivor benefits from $6,000 to $9,000, now therefore be it voted by majority vote that pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 32, Section 101, the Section 101 survivor benefits for the Lowell Retirement System shall be increased from $6,000 to $9,000. If there's no objection, second reading by title in City Council vote authorizing an increase in Section 101 survivor benefits from $6,000 to $9,000 as requested by the Lowell Retirement Board. Excuse me. I'd just like the clerk to place in the record that City Councilor Rita Mercia ended up leaving the room for this vote because this actually does directly benefit Councilor Mercia. What's the wish of the council?
Roll call.
Move approval by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Murphy. Roll call.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Mercia. Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 absent.
The next vote to come before the council, we do have some people registered to speak, but let me actually read the vote. Actually, the vote for those in the audience, the vote is being amended, the last paragraph, as a result of our executive session. I want to make it clear that retirees are specifically mentioned in the vote, so let me read the vote as amended. In City Council vote, authorizing the City Council to ratify and approve the execution by the City Manager of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Lowell and Local 853 International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO Local 2532, AFSCME Council 93, MVEA Unit D, Unit C, and Inspectors, Local 1705 and 1705A, AFSCME Council 93, AFL-CIO, Lowell Police Association Incorporated, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 10, SEIU, Local 888, Lowell Organization of City Engineers, MVEA Unit 1, 2, and 2 professionals, effective July 1st, 2011, and terminating June 30th, 2012. Whereas in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 150E, Section 7B, a collective bargaining memorandum of agreement between the City of Lowell and Local 853 International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO Local 2532, AFSCME Council 93, MVEA Unit D, Unit C, and Inspectors, Local 1705 and 1705A, AFSCME Council 93, AFL-CIO, Lowell Police Association Incorporated, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 10, SEIU, Local 888, Lowell Organization of City Engineers, MVEA Unit 1, 2, and 2 professionals, effective July 1st, 2011, and terminating June 30th, 2012, had been reached acting through its city manager as the collective bargaining representative, and Local 853 International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, Local 2532, AFSCME Council 93, MVEA Unit D, Unit C, and Inspectors Local 1705 and 1705A, AFSCME Council 93, AFL-CIO, Lowell Police Association Incorporated, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 10, SEIU, Local 888, City Engineers, MVEA, Unit 1, 2, and 2 professionals, which agreement covers the items negotiated over the past few months. And whereas pursuant to the terms of the agreement, the city will be eliminating any offering of its Blue Cross Master Medical Plan to all city union groups and retirees. And whereas in furtherance of the agreement, the city will establish a mitigation fund in the amount of $300,000, which will be open to all benefit recipients who transfer from Master Medical to the PPO or HMO and whose union ratified the agreement. And whereas in consideration of the concessions by all city unions, the city further agrees that the base wage of all health benefit eligible employees shall, pursuant to the terms of the agreement, be increased by $500 on July 1st, 2011, and by an additional $500 on June 30th, 2012. Whereas it is necessary that the City Council approve the expenditure of the funds pursuant to the above-named collective bargaining agreements, and whereas the city manager requests and recommends approval of said agreements, now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. This is the new language. That the terms of the MOA as it relates to the elimination of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Master Medical Plan and the creation of a mitigation fund shall apply to all current retirees of the City of Lowell, as well as future retirees whose unions are a party to the underlying MOA. If there's no objection, second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the City Council to ratify and approve the execution by the City Manager of a memorandum of agreement between the City of Lowell and Local 853, International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO, Local 2532, AFSCME Council 93, MVEA Unit D, Unit C, and Inspectors, Local 1705 and 1705A, AFSCME Council 93, AFL-CIO, Lowell Police Association Incorporated, New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 10, SEIU, Local 888, Lowell Organization of City Engineers, MVEA Unit 1, 2, and 2 professionals, effective July 1st, 2011, and terminating June 30th, 2012. As I mentioned earlier, we do have people registered to speak. I don't know at this point if we should have the manager's presentation or ask our speakers to come forward. Do you want to have the speakers come forward? Again, I just didn't know if there'd be new information from the manager's presentation. I will ask the clerk to call the names of those who have registered to speak.
Tom Flynn, 39 Waterford Street.
Good evening, Mr. Flynn.
Good evening. There have been many articles in Boston papers since the last time I spoke here about Blue Cross and money going to executives and their board. It would be a shame to go after Blue Cross for the way they spend their money. That's our money they're spending. The charade is almost over. The goal is in sight. Elimination of Master Medical is at hand. The council, in its benevolence, requested that the manager give retirees a seat at the table. The seat at the table was like inviting someone to dinner, but never offering them food. They did have a seat at the table. And the best part of all of this, from the newspaper article, is this is the beginning, not the end. This is the way things have gone in the private sector for a while. The books get balanced on the backs of employees and retirees. And the one who cuts their benefits gets, if I may say so, a healthy raise. Thank you.
Margaret Farrell, school retiree.
Good evening, Benton Lynch, city councilors. I'm a City of Lowell retiree teacher, but I'm going to speak tonight for all of the City of Lowell retirees concerning the health plans. I urge you to continue to educate all of our non-Medicaid retirees on all of the plan options, which will in the long run help benefit the city. While many changes to our health plans have been made and have been accepted, I feel it's very important that the city retirees be assured that our contributions remain the same. I am here tonight to inquire if you're able to give us that assurance that our benefits will remain, our contributions will remain the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Georges.
City manager, councilors. You know, several months ago we were here and we talked about the retirees came down and visited you a couple of weeks in a row to talk about their concerns about health insurance. And at the time I remember some of the city councilors indicating that they wanted the retirees to be part of the process. You're arriving tonight, they have not been part of this process. They have simply been informed about the changes that are going to take place to them. I see health insurance agreement to eliminate Master Medical. I don't know any retirees who are agreeing to that. This is being done to them, not with them. Now, I'd say to you that we have other models that have been effective. We all know that 3 years ago, 100% of the school department employees, or close to 100%, had Master Medical, 3.5 years ago. Through an aggressive education program, we've reduced that participation by 64%. 65%, almost two-thirds. And that's going to decrease again next year. There will be more people moving toward other plans as more people become comfortable and they speak to their colleagues and they feel a comfort zone of making that move. The Insurance Advisory Committee 4 years ago when Mr. Lynch arrived here suggested to him to do the same thing to the non-Medicare eligible retirees who by and large had Master Medical. It fell on deaf ears. However, last winter or last November, when retirees showed up under some pressure, we agreed to have a meeting to inform retirees of their options. The result of that experience was that almost 10% of the people moved out of Master Medical. But it was their choice. It was their choice. It's said that you're going to save $1 million by doing this. On the school department side, we saved $2 million this year alone simply by informing our members to make an informed choice that ultimately resulted in a savings of $2 million. That's not me saying that, it's Jay Lang, the money man on the school department side. I'm suggesting to you that an aggressive education program could be effective over a period of time to, again, limiting the number of people in Master Medical in the most expensive plan. Mr. Lynch and others say there are other plans just as good. I don't know that. I know that I represent very intelligent people who can make choices. And I don't have their same needs in any way, shape, or form. Certainly there could have been other ways of handling this. What's happening tonight is you're melding two separate issues. And I'm not here to speak against the arrangement that you have or the agreement that you have with the municipal unions that have come to an agreement, 10 or 11 or whatever it is, that were represented in this meeting, and now you're going to ratify. But to assume that that's slightly over a third of the unionized employees in the city, the majority are on the school department side, and we've not entered into this. We're still negotiating under 150E, the legitimate way of negotiating that we've used for decades. So why is it that when just over slightly over a third of the employees decide to give up Master Medical, that obligates you to eliminate the option of Master Medical to retirees that have served the city for decades, without exercising that option of further educating those retirees so there will be a movement away from Master Medical of their choice. They deserve that choice. They worked for this city for decades. All they expected was to be able to be treated with respect, and this is not respectful when you pull it out from under them. There's better ways of being creative. You can come up with benchmarks. We do that in education. Over a period of time, there will be a benchmark to reduce participation in master medical to a certain percentage, and you try to work within those benchmarks. Why not exercise that? That's a heck of a lot more creative than simply saying you get slightly over a third of the members to give up master medical for whatever consideration they're going to get. And that somehow gives you carte blanche to pull out an option for employees that have not had the benefit of being educated about the other options that could have led to a reduction in cost of health insurance. I just think it's a matter of respect. I think it's a message to the future employees in the city. What is it? When you get to a certain age, you're no longer, useful to the community? You're forgotten? That's not right. I grew up in the Acre. I grew up with a lot of tough kids, hung around the North Common, played football down there, did a bunch of other things. We always had mutual respect for each other. We'd slug it out on the Common, but we had mutual respect, and we never hit anybody with a low blow. I'm just saying this is not right. Why meld the two issues together when they are not melded together? These retirees had no part of an agreement that was made with municipal unions. They should not be pulled in under that cover in order to eliminate their master medical, particularly when the majority of unionized employees in this city still have that as an option. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Manager Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me walk you through a presentation tonight, and hopefully this will address some of the questions or issues that have been raised, and provide to the public that's watching, the public that's here, and the public that's watching, the details of the agreement that's been reached after much hard work by the unions that stepped forward and participated, as well as a number of other people that, retirees in fact, that sat at the table with me and raised issues that we tried to address. Let me just start though with a little bit of an overview, and I know people have sat through this presentation before, but I do think it's important to put this in the proper context. The challenge that we face, and I think we all know these challenges, but let me quickly go through them. We have, in terms of our revenue picture, we have declining local aid. We all know that. We've lost a considerable sum of money in local aid over the last several years since fiscal year 2009. We're down almost $20 million. This year, in general local aid, we're looking at another reduction of about $1.6 million and possibly more. We should have a better sense of that tomorrow, but as it stands right now, it looks like the governor's proposal is to cut general local aid by $1.6 million. And the House may increase, and Senate may increase that. That's general local aid. To Chapter 70 for the schools, actually under the governor's proposal, is slated to go up substantially. So the challenge is really on the general local aid side of things right now. We do, as we know, have had a tremendous increase in non-discretionary costs. These are our fixed costs that we really have very little control over. Certainly this includes health care, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but it also includes our pension costs, as was already talked about earlier this evening. We have a unfunded liability in the pension system that we have to fund by 2030 or thereabouts, 2034, and that's about $150 million that we have to, and we see those costs go up each year. Not so much for the employees that are with us now because they, as has been pointed out, they are actually paying for themselves. But this is an unfunded liability that's on the books as a result of the city not making contributions into the retirement system some years ago, as well as the fact that the actuarial assumptions at the time were not accurate, that in fact the people were not contributing enough into the pension system to keep it in the proper condition. So we're seeing those costs continue to go up, as well as energy costs and other costs that we have very little control over. We do have flat revenues. In addition to local aid, we're not seeing as much new growth as we would like. We're doing okay. Certainly the council has heard me and the public has heard me speak to this in the past, that in fact, Lowell is doing well with some of our projects moving forward, but certainly not as much as we would if there was enough development taking place in a much better economy. The issue, though, that we have before us tonight is, in fact, the high skyrocketing healthcare costs. There's been a 146% increase over the last 10 years. It is eating up our budget. More and more health insurance costs are taking over the entire budget. In addition to that, we now have to account for what the unfunded liability is for post-employment benefits. We think $150 million is bad for the pension liability. The unfunded liability for our health costs based on the actuarial analysis that's been done is $690 million. It's a staggering number that we have to bring under control. I believe it was Mayor Menino that recently testified at the State House that made the observation, and other officials echoed this, that before long, the only thing that municipal government will do is fund health insurance. We will no longer be able to fund the services that people expect of us. We'll no longer be able to fund the infrastructure that people depend upon. All we'll be able to do is fund health insurance. That's certainly the direction that we're heading. Now, there has been talk about this, and we've gone over this a number of occasions. One of the issues, one of the challenges that we have here is the fact that Lowell, pretty much, I won't say, I was incorrect, I think, in stating that we're the only community. There are some other communities that have small pockets of Master Medical. We have the largest in the Commonwealth. Master Medical is unsustainable. It is a very costly, it's an outdated mode of providing insurance, and that's why communities around the Commonwealth and private sector businesses around the Commonwealth have gotten rid of Master Medical. It's an old indemnity plan that simply is considered by most not to be the Cadillac that is described by some, but in fact a dinosaur that we no longer can afford to provide. And in fact, it doesn't even make the most sense for people that take insurance. It actually results in higher costs for them, both in premiums and out-of-pocket costs, and it does little to help them with the types of care that prevent illness, as opposed to just deal with catastrophic illnesses. So it is outdated. It's no longer offered in most communities, as I've said, and that there are alternatives that are better than Master Medical. What are the consequences of this problem? Well, for the taxpayer, they are seeing service reductions. Each and every year, they see more cuts in the number of policemen on the street, the number of firefighters in the fire stations, the number of people working on their roads, the investment in their roads, the investment in their parks. They see fewer books at the library services. And in the school department, in fact, and this really doesn't apply to the school department perhaps, but certainly in the school department, they've seen major cutbacks in the number of teachers in the classroom, the number of librarians in the libraries, the books that are being provided to their school children, and so on and so on. There's a serious impact upon the people who pay the bill in terms of service reductions. And each year we live by, or we stand by the, and I know that the council has questioned me on this in the past, of why we have to go up 2.5% a year. Well, that's the standard we use is the Proposition 2.5 standard. But I think the most frustrating thing for the taxpayers is not only are they seeing that 2.5% increase each year, but they're seeing service reductions at the same time. And the service reductions are a result of the decrease in local aid and the fact that all of those tax dollars are going to fund health insurance offerings and unfunded liabilities in the pension system that really should, that in most sectors are no longer the case. So it's frustrating for the taxpayers to see those service reductions. For the current employees, they've seen their positions cut back by between 10 and 15%. Fewer workers. They've seen wage stagnation that they've not seen as they too grapple with the increase in health insurance costs and their share of those health insurance costs. They see their energy costs go up, their food costs go up, and so on. They also know that those wages are the basis of their retirement, and they're paying in 11% of their wages towards their retirement system, but they're not seeing those wages go up at all. And frankly, you know, we just not in a position where we necessarily can do that, but certainly given the amount of money that goes into the health insurance costs, which is our topic this evening, that's certainly a case. They're also seeing for current employees, they've made concession upon concession upon concession, and I applaud them for that. They did step up to the plate. They did, in many cases, our employees, not in all departments, they took a furlough. They took a wage freeze. They have made changes in their work to help us save money. And this is the effect that they're seeing. So we sat down and we negotiated with those unions. We offered this up to every single union in the city. Not all unions participated, and I'll get back to that in a couple minutes. But let me get right to the proposal that we have, the proposal that's included within the memorandum of understanding that's before the City Council tonight, and is the result of the work that those collective bargaining groups did, the presidents of those organizations, some of their representatives, as well as the fact that they worked the issue with their members and they came up with this proposal. It calls for the elimination of Master Medical for all non-school employees and retirees effective July 1st, 2011. It does provide, because they are making a change in their benefits for those employees, that the annual salary for all non-school employees would increase by $500 on July 1st, 2011, and $500 on June 30th of 2012. In talking with the unions, as well as the retirees that we've talked to, there were concerns raised that what if there are costs that are incurred by employees by shifting over from Master Medical to the PPO. Now, I think if you look at the sheet that was sent out to all the employees and retirees that shows the difference in terms of the benefits that come with each plan, you can see that the premium's lower in the HMO, and the premium's lower in the PPO, and the benefits are very similar or in some cases, in many cases, better than the Master Medical. But there certainly are the isolated cases or concerns, I should say, about cases where perhaps prescription drugs, they may be a little bit more. Or perhaps there's some other event that will occur that could result in a higher out-of-pocket cost. Now, I said earlier that every community around us, as well as across the Commonwealth, has gotten rid of Master Medical for the most part, and they've gone to the PPO. And generally speaking, there's been no complaint in any of those communities. The PPO has worked and worked effectively. But we recognize there are concerns, and so we want to make sure that people feel that a certain level of comfort. So we proposed, with the work of the coalition bargaining group, those 14 unions, we establish a $300,000 mitigation fund to address potential costs over savings. Keep in mind that there will be savings for all of these employees in their premiums and in some of their out-of-pocket costs. But if in the event there is more coming out of their pocket, we've set aside this mitigation fund to address those costs. And this applies to retirees that will be affected by this, as well as the employees that shift from Master Medical to the PPO or shift to the HMO. In talking with the retirees that we've talked to, as well as the union people, there were concerns as to what about the people, the retirees that are in Medicare and in the future, everyone's going to be in Medicare. I should state that. This June, when the budget is passed, the state is going to require that all retirees, current and future retirees, be part of the Medicare system. But there was concerns of why shift people out of the carve-out A and B if, in fact, there are no, and some of the retirees are in Medicare and they do have the supplemental carve-out A and B, and they consider themselves to be part of Master Medical. Well, they are and they're not. They're part of a supplemental plan. They're not part of the active Master Medical that we're focusing upon. So there really isn't a difference in cost between the MedX system that we would initially proposed and the carve-out A and B. So we approached the retiree group that we were working with, and we proposed that, in fact, we grandfather all of those people in. If you're in the carve-out A and B, you can stay in the carve-out A and B if you're currently retired by the City of Lowell. Okay. The other question I know that has been raised, and I made sure to include it in this proposal, and the issue was raised, in fact, tonight, about the contribution. The contribution under this proposal will be able to stay at 75-25 for employees, which obviously to change that we'd have to bargain, and for retirees. Now, I want to be honest. I can't say that this is always going to be the case, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But it's my intention, for as long as we can, and hopefully that's forever, to keep it at the 75-25. But, you know, if there's more massive cuts in local aid, if there's a total downturn of the economy, if funds dry up, who knows? So I don't want to be putting myself in a position where down the road someone says, well, you said. It's my intention to keep it at 75-25. This has worked effectively, and I'd like to see it stay in place. And in this proposal, it will for the foreseeable future. I should add, and it's not included on the sheet here, that health insurance is not going to stay like this forever. Come next year, we're going to be required, in all likelihood by the legislature and the governor, to put all people into Medicare. That's going to be a cost to the city, but there's going to be long-term savings. There's also going to be requirements that we do other things in terms of the plan design to make health insurance more in line with what the state is doing with the Group Insurance Commission. But we need to see what's going to happen with that. But right now, this is a good step in the first direction, in the direction of getting us the savings we need to retain services, to retain jobs, and to put us on a better footing financially. The impact of these savings is approximately $1 million in net annual savings. That goes a long way towards addressing that $1.6 million plus reduction in local aid. Now, there have been questions raised of how did this all happen, and that the description earlier tonight was that it seemed to indicate that it was done in a way that was just coming out of my office, that we simply did this. I would argue differently, that in fact the health insurance agreement is a result of an inclusive, collaborative process conducted over a period of months through information and education. What have we done? In terms of education, we had special enrollment period, open enrollment periods, and we've had these on numerous occasions. Every other organization has one open enrollment a year that people can, in fact, go in and decide what insurance they're going to have. We have done 2 open enrollments almost every year that I've been city manager. We've done it to work with the school unions. We've done it to work with the retirees. We try to make it possible for people to make changes that benefit them and benefit the city. The reason you need some type of control over that, where people can't just go in willy-nilly, is that you need to set up early in the year, when we buy our reinsurance, what the census is, where are people on health insurance, so that the reinsurance people that pay for our high claims know what the coverage is going to be. We've made an opportunity for our employees and retirees for one-on-one consultations with Blue Cross Blue Shield representatives. We sent out a flyer to everyone. Let us know. We can arrange to have someone from Blue Cross Blue Shield at City Hall or at some other location meet with you one-on-one to go over your medical bills. They have all those medical bills. We don't necessarily have those. They can sit down and go through with people and show them what would be covered by each plan and how it would work out. So that was made available, and a number of people did take advantage of that. We've had direct mailings regarding plan information. I described some of that already, and we sent out more. We had a retiree health insurance information session on December 15th. We had about 200 to 300 retirees attend, and we carried it live on LTC and online. This is going to continue. We have a retiree information session in healthcare on May 19th. Question was raised, are we going to continue to work with retirees to educate them? Yes, we are. We're going to continue to do that on a regular basis. The process has also been inclusive. It has not been a case where we've simply made the decision out of my office, that we invited every single union in the city to participate. Unfortunately, not all did. The UTL and the other school unions chose not to participate. They left this, they decided to do something different, which is their right, because we didn't require people to participate. But all of the non-school unions, all of the city unions, 14 of them in all, did participate. They did participate. There was good discussion. There was there were meetings that were followed by other meetings. They had sessions with their own members. The result of which was overwhelming support for this agreement that's put before you tonight. And it was, in fact, unanimous. Not all the members. There was opposition within each bargaining unit, few people in each one, but every one of those 14 did participate. Now, those are the unions. I did agree to work with the retirees. I worked with them through the session that we held, and I should say that the UTL, to their credit, did help us by having another retiree meeting with the Boston Benefit Partners, and I appreciate their willingness to do that. It has been quite an educational effort with the UTL, and they've been good partners in that respect. So, but I did agree that I would also meet with retirees, and we had a 9-member advisory group that included retirees from the teachers union, from the firefighters union. These are retired members. Retired teachers, retired firefighters, retired police, retired 1705, retired MVEA. We had a retired city employee, 9 in all. In addition, there were city officials. The city officials participated in the coalition bargaining as well as the retiree advisory group, including myself at every meeting, the HR manager, the city solicitor, the CFO, and others. And we've met monthly since January. I believe, actually, I think we've had 5 meetings so far this year. And it's my intention, as I've indicated to them, to continue meeting, even though this matter is completed to a great extent. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense to have that retiree group continue to meet. There are other issues that may arise that it makes sense to have an opportunity to sit down at the table and talk. So it has been a good process. I think the proposal that you have, the memorandum that you have in front of you is a good proposal, and as you can, and importantly, it provides us savings to do the job that we need to do in terms of the residents of the city. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or address any issues that members may have.
Thank you, Manager Lynch. Anybody want to begin the questioning? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, we talked about the health care, or the health insurance trust fund. I don't have the budget right in front of me, but I know we had a preliminary discussion inside. It's around 40 million approximately for that health on an annual basis.
The total health costs of for the city, are including schools, is roughly $40 million.
Okay.
Right. The trust fund itself, of course, the money goes in, the money comes out.
Right.
But it's the total health appropriation each year is 40 million and the 39 million, and the trust fund has money coming in and going out by the city and the employees.
And just for the people at home and here, the trust fund is made up of premiums contributed by the people that are insured, by the employees and the retirees.
And the city.
Right, but it's premiums less the expenses.
Right.
And the balance is made up by the taxpayers.
That's
right?
correct.
Or the
Correct.
difference, I'm sorry, the variance.
Right.
And on an average, what is the average increase? I know some years it's double-digit increase, some years 7%, 8% in that health.
The increase in our premiums for the last several years has been between 10 and, did we hit 19 one year? The first year. It's been, over the last few years, it's been 10 to 19%. We did have a period going back about 5 to 8 years ago where, because of the budgetary issues and a number of other things, it was kept artificially low. It should have been higher, but it's usually in the 10 to 12% range.
So I'm just trying to put this, into perspective for myself. When we look at the levy is about 100 million. 2.5% of that is what, the minimum for property tax increase. We're talking $2.5 million, just roughly, and speaking. So we look at 2.5 for property tax increase. Then we're looking at just in health insurance alone, just 4 million.
Correct.
That's where we're at. That's why we're looking at any option when it comes to health insurance, including plan design, et cetera.
Correct.
Et cetera. So that was just that was one question I had. So I'll defer to the other my colleagues, but that was what I wanted to get at this point. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, how many city employees have altered their insurance, health insurance from Mass Medical to an HMO or PPO?
Kelly, do you have that number off the top?
Just a...
About 1,600 people versus maybe about 1,200 in the
1,600 people have changed? Have we had,
total over the past, 15 years. Or
have we had any complaints from anyone about the HMO plan or the PPO plan?
Out of all of the people that have switched over the PPO, we've had one person, to my knowledge, want to go back. And it wasn't because it costs more, it wasn't because they didn't get good service, it was because they didn't want the indication to us was that they didn't want to have to make a phone call for a referral but it wasn't clear to us, but that's the only one.
Mr. Judge has indicated earlier that approximately 64% of the school employees have altered their health program from Mass Medical to another program. And I haven't heard any complaints. I don't think Mr. Judge has heard any complaints. In 1999, and Tom Moses, you can correct me if you feel like, but the health insurance cost at City of Lowell was approximately $13 million. 2011 is now $39 million. That's approximately 11% of our entire budget. I received a few calls from retirees today. And some, their concern was they don't have Plan A or Plan B, the cover Plan A, Plan B, because they retired and they're not old enough to receive that. But I just want to just read off this one paragraph. Retirees on a supplemental carve-out A and B plans will be grandfathered and able to remain on these plans rather than required to transfer to Medic's plan. That's a big issue, isn't it, Mr. Manager?
Yes, it is.
I have an HMO Blue plan. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I've been in Mass General Hospital. My wife's been there. In the last 3 months, I can't tell you how many times she's been visiting the neurologist and excellent doctors. The co-payment was $5. The medical attention with the HMO Blue Plan is fabulous. There's no questions. And I think what people are afraid of, one constituent called me today and said, "You're taking my health insurance away from me." I says, "I don't think that's the case. I think what we're doing is giving you another health insurance plan that's probably just as good, but less costly to the city, but more importantly, less costly to you." And the city is putting $300,000 in a fund to answer any questions if their cost is greater than they expected. You know, you attend council meetings, and every so often, you have to come up with a vote, and sometimes you're damn if you do and damn if you don't. And one of the major factors throughout this entire country that's affecting municipalities is the cost of health insurance. And I agree with Mr. Flynn. The executives at some of these levels, it's absolutely ridiculous the amount of money they receive. And it's a domino effect to the little guy that's at that podium. Mr. Manager, you have to do what you have to do. And I'm going to support this because 14 other unions, I would imagine, had representatives at those meetings and informed them it's a good altered plan. What do they choose, PPOs or HMOs? I talked to some union representatives today on the phone, and they were in agreement with it. Are there going to be some retirees that aren't happy, that wish they had the Master Medical with them forever? Yes. And I asked you before the meeting, approximately how many retirees don't have the A and B plan and so forth. It's almost
about 500.
500. So if they were to stay on Master Medical, there wouldn't be any savings. And I want to assure them, whether it's a PPO or an HMO, it's a good health plan. I attended that meeting at the auditorium December 15th, and I thought the representative for Blue Cross Blue Shield was excellent. All the questions that were posed were important. And I believe a lot of people, after that meeting, they altered their plan to an HMO or a PPO. And I know personal friends of mine who have done that, and I haven't had any complaints. So I guess people don't like change. This is a very important issue to them. But as you indicated earlier, Mr. Manager, we cannot sustain the cost. That cost will eventually erode the services we have for the people, and it will bankrupt the city sooner or later. And we have to do something and yet provide the people with a good health plan. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo Councilor Caulfield's words that this is difficult. I know we've been here several times discussing this, and I personally can understand the concern and the fear of going from a health insurance that you're comfortable with, that you know guarantees the services that you're looking for. I was interested in Mr. George's comments and then other comments about intensive education and benchmarking. We have several months here. Can we have a break up the number of people who are still in Master Medical that need to be spoken to and made to feel comfortable? Can we reach out to them, sit down with them, walk them through this? It's not as if this is going to be happening tomorrow. I know you have the May 19th scheduled date, but sometimes those larger groups they're uncomfortable for people to attend, so maybe we can make sure that we've prepared time, if this goes through, prepared time to sit with everybody, because ultimately these savings are going to benefit the city and also help cover some of the increased costs that we voted on tonight, which we feel, are important, that we support our seniors and our retired people and our current employees. So if this passes, I would appreciate if you could make sure that every person has an opportunity to sit down with an expert and gets that sense of guarantee that this is not going to be ripped from them, the insurance. Thank you.
We certainly, the month of May is our open enrollment month, and we will be sending something out to all of the employees and all the retirees to let them know their options, and included within that is the opportunity to come in and sit down to set up a time with either someone here on staff or with representatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the information and the presentation and the work that's gone into this, not only by the administration, but by the group of retirees that has met and the collective bargaining units that have agreed to this. Because this is, the way we do it now just isn't sustainable. And the manager alluded to it, the state is going to impose changes in all likelihood next year anyway, and we're better off, I think, getting out in front of this now. We've heard the numbers, in just a little more than 10 years, we've gone from $13 million to $40 million, tripling, in a 10-year period. And, it's not just the city of Lowell that's facing this, but we're one of the few places that have this plan left, and we can have an opportunity to change to what I think we all very much believe is very good coverage. And I can appreciate people have their coverage. They don't want to change it. It works for them. But it's just not affordable this way anymore. And it has to change, and I think there's a lot of good faith that's gone into it, into this plan. And I particularly think the trust fund that's going to reimburse people who incur extra cost, I think is a very innovative concept. We've heard about the need for some creativity. I think that is a very good approach. You do see that in the private sector. You see oftentimes companies that will increase a per person deductible from $500 to $1,000, and yet save more than that in premium reduction and agree to reimburse the employee some of that. That's what's happening here. It doesn't mean if your payment goes from $10 to $20, you're going to get that $10, because you're also going to have savings in your premium. But once those go past, there's a fund here where you can go to be held whole. So I think that's a very good approach. I think the unions that have agreed to this are very protective of the retirees in their own unions, and I don't think for a minute they would agree to something that was going to shortchange people that have worked for the city for many, many years. I think we have a great amount of respect for the people and the work that they've done for the city, but the reality is that this just can't be sustained anymore. It has to change, and I think this is as good approach as I've seen to change it. So I want to thank the unions, the members that they represent, for their willingness to see that and to do what's best for their members and what's best for the taxpayers. I think it's a good plan, a good compromise, and I plan to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Councilor Martin's points about the trust fund, but just to clarify a few issues through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Mr. Manager, that the retirees aren't a part of this actual agreement. Is that correct?
They, under chapter 150E, they are not, they do not have collective bargaining rights and collective bargaining status, but the agreement that we have with all of the unions is that the retirees would be part of the, would be able to take advantage of the 300,000.
Right, so.
As well as, obviously, the other changes that are included in the offerings that we make.
In other words, under the coalition bargaining that you've chosen to work under,
right.
You would be able to make these changes without the agreement of these unions here.
That's correct.
So that the existence of this $300,000 trust fund is a result of
largely a result of everyone coming to the table and agreeing, right?
If this agreement were to be used as a sort of template for an agreement with the teachers and other school unions, would that be financially sustainable?
I decline to comment right now. That would be subject really to the whole collective bargaining process.
I'm saying that if you were to apply this, $1,000 for each school employee, and this, a greater trust fund along these same lines, I mean, to get a better sense of whether or not this would in fact.
Councilor Murphy, I'm being told by the solicitor that we're getting into collective bargaining issues, and I'm going to have to rule that out of order.
Okay. I think that basically what retirees are looking for here is an assurance that their health insurance is changed in a way that preserves the same kind of care that they have right now. That's what I was asking for back in November.
Mm-hmm.
Some design guidelines to put in place with the council in order to have that sort of trust, to be able to negotiate with future agreements with the other unions,
right.
So that you could realize even more savings. But I think that trust has to be in place. Something along the lines of really understanding prior to any kind of agreement that the health insurance wouldn't be manipulated just in a way to produce those cost savings, though they are important. I think everybody recognizes there needs to be change. The question is how those changes are made. And if they are made in a way that preserves the same level of care, then I think you would see a lot more people come on board. The idea that you can still realize those savings from moving from a master medical plan to the PPO, and be able to supplement any gaps there that are produced by that change through the trust fund, I think is something that people would be more supportive of if they knew that this is how we're always going to operate. That it's not just about closing gaps as they arise, but it's about making sure that the care that was agreed upon through contracts, that is in fact preserved.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Mercia?
I just want to clearly say that I have the greatest respect for unions. There's no doubt about that. My husband was the president of Local 39 many years ago. Painters and Allied Trade, so I do have some solidarity there. And when we look at some people that are opposed and upset about it, I don't like to get people upset, but we're talking about 14 unions here that have negotiated in good faith The union presidents worked very hard, and I want to compliment and congratulate them for the effort and time that they put into it, with the interest to protect their own rights as well as realizing a significant savings to the city. So that's the 2 points that I want to say, and I think it's a good move, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a difficult situation that we're all in. I don't think we have much of a choice. I think that it's clear we're looking at a 690 roughly unfunded liability here that I think if we don't recognize it and make changes now, that we're going to continue to burden future generations, which I don't think is fair. And as Councilor Elliott pointed out, a 7% increase in our health insurance budget today, this year, will be a greater increase than our 2.5% levy increase. Raise taxes 2.5% won't even cover the increase in costs in health insurance in the city. And, I think people at home recognize that. I think the employees have recognized that. I think that's why we're here with an agreement, and I think that's important. And I would like to thank them for coming to the table and recognizing that and working towards what I think is a very good compromise. And I don't want to say the best plan we can come up with, but a very good compromise. And I think it's important that we continue to educate folks, especially the retirees, and give people the assistance they need in making the changeover and explain to them how this trust fund, I think that's a creative approach to giving folks some security that they will be able to continue to afford to get the care that they currently experience. And I think that it's going to require some hand-holding and some explanation to folks how this is going to take place, what they're going to be responsible for, how they're going to be able to actually get reimbursed from the trust fund. And I think that the key, and being going last, you start to get repetitive here, is to continue to provide good coverage so that the employees and the retirees can continue to get good care in the care that they're receiving now. But we can do it by and save the city and the taxpayers $1 million. And I think that is important. It's not more important than someone's health, but I think we can accomplish both here, and I think that's what this does. So I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. What's the wish of the committee? Councilor Murphy.
Just to follow up through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager, what is the plan to put in place any kind of guidelines for the future with the council?
Well, I think that's really being taken out of our hands, and that's Council. You and I had a chance to speak very briefly earlier before the meeting started, and we discussed this to some extent. And I don't think I got a chance to finish. In large part, I think it is being taken out of our hands because the legislature and the governor are taking the position that they're looking for municipalities to mirror the GIC, and that essentially is going to be our guideline, I think, moving forward, if that is in fact what occurs. So I'd be reluctant to say anything at this point until I see what comes out of the legislature, and then. Obviously, too, it requires a whole collective bargaining process if we're going to make any other changes moving forward, unless, of course, there's changes in the legislature with the legislature. So, I should have a better handle on that for you within the next, month, I would say.
But I mean, if the authority did mirror the GIC, then you would have all kinds of representation, both from the management side as well as labor, and that's not going to be the case.
Here. There has been management and labor at the table on this deal that you have in front of you. And that would it's actually unclear exactly how that will all work with the legislation. Whether in fact I would say it's likely there'll be some collective bargaining responsibilities, but it's going to be a different type of collective bargaining that takes place in all likelihood. But it's hard for us to say at this time until that's been passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Broderick, to approve the vote in front of us this evening. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Caulfield,
Yes.
Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça, Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, Counselor Broderick,
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, we have a communication from the city manager. This is to advise you that I will be on vacation from April 14th through April 22nd. I'm requesting that the city council designate Thomas Moses, CFO, as acting city manager during the above stated period. Thank you for your anticipated courtesy in this regard. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, city manager. Accept the communication placed on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next item, we have an order of taking in City Council, order of taking and acceptance of various streets to take by eminent domain and fee certain parcels of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, the layout and acceptance of the following named streets and other municipal purposes associated therewith: Acropolis Road and Corinthian Drive. Motion to refer to a public hearing on May 3rd by Councilor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor of sending this to a public hearing signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next item, ordinance amending zoning for 550 Bridge Street, extend the TMU traditional mixed-use zone to include the area of 550 to 570 Bridge Street in Lowell. Motion to refer to the planning board by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor of referring to the planning board signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next item under reports, I don't see Councilor Dakota, so I hear Councilor Dakota. Under reports, we have a report of the Marketing, Arts, and Culture Subcommittee that met this evening prior to the council meeting. The chair would recognize Councilor Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met to discuss the future plans for the preservation of the Smith Baker Center. Councilor Murphy, Mercier, Broderick, Caulfield, Martin, and myself were in attendance, in addition to the city manager, Mr. Backey, the assistant city manager, LZ Noon, Paul Marion from UMass Lowell, and Michael Creasy from the National Park. And we were able to get a brief history about the Smith Baker Center, and specifically that since the senior center left in 2003, there has been a continued effort and interest in renovating and preserving that building, particularly for an arts and culture center. Apparently, after doing some review, if more than $100,000 is invested into the property, it triggers some ADA requirements, and in addition to some other compliance issues, which ultimately lead the city to believe that it would be a $5 to $6 million renovation project. According to Mr. Backey, capital financing is available, and the concern is the operational costs once the building is renovated. There was a task force set up by Mr. Mayor Caulfield in 2008, and that information showed that the Middlesex Community College and UMass Lowell had both shown some interest in the building, but again, operationally, there wasn't necessarily funding for that. In 2009, the National Park set aside $20,000 to mothball the building, partially to prevent continued degradation of windows and the roof, as well as protecting stained glass windows and other things. They've not gone in since then, and the heat in that agreement, the city agreed to keep the heat on, which apparently was critical to preserving the building. So that's the long history of the how we get to where we are now. Cool through LZ Nunn did apply for a grant through the Ford Foundation. Apparently they're doing $10 million grants over 10 years. We did not get this one, but we will be applying again to preserve that building, and so we'll keep you posted on that. And apparently there's strong interest in the community to bring together the ethnic cultural activities and see if we can turn that into an arts and culture hub. Again, we're waiting to determine how we would sustain that, what the business model would be. So we'll continue to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Dakota. Anyone else on the report? Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick to accept the report as a report of progress. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Under petitions, we have miscellaneous petition from Melvin Hamburger, owner of 7.1 Oak Avenue, requests to transfer land back to the city. Refer the manager and the law department by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. We have we have two claims, one for property damage and one personal injury claim. Motion by Councilor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Dakota to refer to the law department. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Moving on to the motions. First motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests the city manager to contact the Sheriff's Department and request assistance from inmates cleaning up city parks, snow dumps, and debris due to the lack of city manpower. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
Thanks. It was really the snow dumps, and I know there's even one snow dump the city doesn't own, and it's the old drive-in. But it's as a result of the winter, there's a lot of debris there, and I know the city doesn't have the manpower to do that. I'm not sure how bad the Hovey Park is. I know it's in rough condition, understandably so, but it was just an idea, primarily the snow dumps, Mr. Manager, and not so much the parks. I did get a call from a concerned resident saying we don't want inmates cleaning up some of the parks that are next to the schools. That wasn't my intent. I don't want inmates mixing with school children. It was primarily the snow dumps. So that's the essence of the motion.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's not be confused, because there's a lot of community service work that's being done by our clients, and they're not inmates. They could be potential inmates, but before they get to that point, they come to us, and they do community service. And it is an excellent motion, and I'm sure that our sheriff, Peter Katujian, is completely aware of unions. We just dealt with unions. It is a union issue, and I'm going to give you an example of an issue like similar to what you're talking about. We have clients, and they go on community service Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Saturdays were it was quite a lot of our clients that we had on Saturday. So we have a van. The van only holds like 13 to 15 people. We had more clients than we had room, so we would have had to have gotten another van. In an effort to not get that other van, we thought it would be wise if we could adopt the South Common. Therefore, on a Saturday, instead of trying to find a way to get another van, we could send them across the street to clean the park. But being that it's a union issue, being that it's a city issue, we called everyone to the table. And that was before you were here, Mr. Manager. We got Kiki Rudy, the president of Local 1705. We got T.J. McCarthy. We got Tom Belgard, the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. We got everybody to sit down at the table, representatives from the sheriff and our deputy. They took that message back to the unions. The unions agreed to let us adopt that park, and everybody was happy at the table. I think through this motion that we still could do that. If we sit down like a summit and say, here's the work that we could do for you. We don't want to take your jobs away. We don't want to interfere with the union. But I know that there's so much work that our city workers could never probably get it all done. And in an effort to beautify this city, I think we could have a good compromise. So that's an excellent motion, and we could, entertain that and make sure everybody sits at the table and nobody's slighted and nobody's hurt. I think we could do that. So.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Let the manager speak.
Okay, Mr. Manager?
No, I was just going to say that we have in fact used the Sheriff's Department on various projects, as Councilor Mercer indicated, goes back years, and we've even done it of late. We've used them at various locations around the city, and I think it's certainly a worthwhile motion in terms of trying to get whatever resources we can to address these issues. But as Councilor Mercier points out, there are some collective bargaining issues that we've encountered before, and we'll work with them again. And but I do think that whatever resources we can draw on, volunteer or otherwise, it's always very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a call from a constituent last week about the parcel of land behind the bowling alleys and so forth by J.J. Boomers. I mentioned it to Henry Marchand yesterday, and it's where we put all the snow, and all the snow melted, and now there's all kinds of debris. That would be an excellent project for the Sheriff's Department to address, and I know the constituents who use that parcel of land to walk their dogs and so forth will be happy about it. So I know the city's going to address that, but that's a good project for the Sheriff's Department.
Right, and the motion does specifically mention snow dumps. Yes. Anybody else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager to explore the potential of offering prescription drug discount cards based on the Gloucester model. Second by Councilor Mercier. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had made this motion before I knew what the discussion tonight was going to entail, but Somerville, I did see, had a program that was run through the National League of Cities, of which I guess we are not a member.
That's correct.
But it was able to save its residents, on average, about 20% on their discounts, or if they just received a discount card for prescription drugs. But there is another program that was run through an organization called Needy Meds, which worked with the city of Gloucester to provide cards, basically Gloucester branded, to both residents and I think people within the immediate area, to be able to purchase those prescription drugs that aren't even necessarily covered by even the more expensive plans like Master Medical, say. So this is just to get a sense of what it would take in terms of startup costs. I think mostly maybe in terms of time for somebody to sort of coordinate a program like this, but to get a sense of whether that would be worth it in order to provide these to all the residents of Lowell. And I think knowing now the discussion that took place, that might even save the city money from out of the trust fund. If prescription drugs are in fact what will drive up the cost there because of a mismatch from the plans, that maybe that is something to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we adjourn, I just would like to wish a speedy recovery to our colleague Joe Mendonça here. We wish him the best in health, and I hope that he comes back to us soon. And secondly, the city of Lowell is sponsoring a rabies vaccination clinic this Saturday at the DPW garage on Middlesex Street. Cats should be in a carrier and dogs on a leash, but the shot is only $10. I mean, you can't go wrong for that, and it's a good service that the city provides to our animal friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy, did you have your...
Yes, I actually spoke with Taya Dixon-Mullane of the Lowell Highlands Neighborhood Group yesterday, and she asked me to just notify people that there is going to be a cleanup at the Armory and Clemente Park on April 30th. So if there are any volunteers, I don't think they were looking for inmates. So, But if there are any residents without a record willing to participate, then we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Elliott.
Mayor, Councilor Mercier was referenced dogs and rabies and shots. I spoke to you earlier in the meeting. See if you could get us an update of where the advisory, animal advisory task force is with relative to the issues that were sent there to pit.
Okay,
pit bulls.
I'll provide a report for the council next week. I will tell you also that we're meeting again on May 11th, but I know that's too much time between now and what's going on right now, so I'll have a report for the council next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to point out that Mayor Martin's portrait is now on the wall behind us, so I just want to congratulate Mayor Martin for entering the chamber. Congratulations. Congratulations. With that, on motion, that's right, that's right.
Listen, we could put it up in the attic, so.
That's right, it could have been up in the
while you're
attic,
ahead.
but it is there. Motion to adjourn by Council Broderick, second by Council Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's opposed. Thank you all very much.